My name is Zigmund Rubel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Forsight Digital, and I'm here to talk to you today about Forsight Digital and the seed investment we're seeking to transition buildings to become medical devices. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is how healthcare is broken in the US, and it's a great opportunity for all of us to look into and how we can, Forsight Digital is looking to transition hospitals primarily, which is a third of healthcare expenditure, to become predictable medical devices. And I'll talk to you about what the problem is and how we're planning on addressing it. So it's really a $1 trillion problem that we're addressing as the market, and it's both the buildings and the staffing and the resources that healthcare operators spend to try and figure things out. And the bottleneck is accessing the right data for them being the healthcare operators to figure out how to plan their facilities and operate them. And what normally, unfortunately, occurs is truly chaos in how they're looking to plan and operate those buildings. So I just want to share one story of an actual project that I worked on. It was for a large healthcare operator on the West Coast who has over 50 hospitals and more than 100 clinics, and they have millions of patients, both in California and nationally. And what simply started out is for a new healthcare campus in the Bay Area where they had hundreds of stakeholders, more than 100 opinions. And they spent over 5 years figuring out a project that they didn't end up building, which they ended up taking another 3 years in planning and then another 7 years to design and build it. And they ended up spending over $50 million on the planning part of the project that they yielded no value for. So that's kind of the basic problem that we're trying to solve. And every healthcare project that I've worked on as a healthcare architect, we've spent as much time designing as planning as we have designing and building. So we've created a tool called Fastplay, and Fastplay really yields a 100x faster solution, which brings the viability stage of the determination of a project to be predictable and acts as a functional digital twin for the client. So today, if we had this tool several years ago, the experience would be completely different. It would take something that would take years into days and could easily size any healthcare project literally in one meeting, but we know nothing in healthcare gets done in one meeting. So it would probably take 1 month to decide to determine what this medical campus might be for the healthcare client. So in terms of traction, which is normally a common question, we have about 36 different interested parties, from healthcare operators to healthcare planners to architects and builders. And we have 8 firms that we're currently negotiating deals with, and half of those clients are billion-dollar companies, mostly builders, and the builders are interested in the tool because they can get very early valuable information. And we have one large design firm that is targeting to use this on one of their projects in Asia. So in terms of the market size, I mentioned it's a $1 trillion market. Most of that is healthcare staffing. So it's all your doctors and nurses. And the reason why we're saying it's addressable is a lot of our early validation projects was able to show how we can save staffing dollars in these healthcare buildings. And in terms of the obtainable market, it's 1/10 of the addressable market. And what we believe is serviceable is 1% of the 10% of the overall addressable market. So that's how we're getting to a just over a $1 billion serviceable market. So in terms of the competition, there are other people doing this. And what makes us unique is that we're integrating or tying together the different pieces that other firms are doing. So we're doing healthcare facilities planning, operational analysis, understanding what the care journey is, and of course, the data reporting where we're taking different data from different aspects available and stitching it together. So in terms of a pricing model, there's really two versions. There's a per project basis, and that's where there's a lot of interest in for architects and contractors to use our tool on their projects. But the end game is to get operators to subscribe to our tool, which we see the designers and builders leveraging our tool on their projects. So this is our current revenue projection. We know that this is probably optimistic, but we see ourselves being a $50 million company in 5 years, $5 million in annual recurring revenue in 2 years. And that's what we're hoping this investment will allow. And our team, so I'm one of the co-founders. I'm the quote unquote building architect of the team. I have 30 years of experience and another startup under my belt. With me is Vamshi Gankiti, who's a medical doctor and an epidemiologist. Vamshi and I worked at the previous startup together. And also joining us is Jerry Aujala, who's our chief technology officer. And we've been working with Jerry for over the last year on getting Forsight Digital and Fastplay to the market. So our vision is just not healthcare. While we can go deep in healthcare and integrate electronic medical records and personal health data and IoT, we see our tool being a platform for any building type. So there's been a lot of interest in our conversations with schools because they are planned very similarly, airports, civic building, science and technology, and we have done some commercial buildings. So all of that we see as growing into those building type, which isn't part of the serviceable addressable market that I presented before. So in terms of our roadmap, what the investment would allow us to do is to build on the opportunities in terms of market share by getting purchasing data, creating scenario generation so that the customer doesn't have to input all of the different points, and then within a year being able to edit the proprietary care plans that we've created, then going into dynamic simulation and optimization, having a spatial solver, and then eventually tying into electronic health records. And that will get us to a $5 million annual recurring revenue. So in terms of the ask, we're looking at 2 tranches. We're currently on the Shadow Ventures web portal asking for a $250,000 seed. That'll get us through the first 6 months. It'll validate that we have real market traction. And after we validate that, we would be looking to raise the other $500,000. And what that would allow us to do in the 24 months is to get to $4 to $5 million of annual recurring revenue, 200 clients, And of course, our goal is 1 in 5 new US healthcare projects that are $400,000 in value would be on our system. So just to wrap up, our key investment merits is that it's a huge market. It's a sticky product, meaning that once clients actually use it, they'll want to use it again. We're coordinating healthcare, which is a real problem in the industry. As I mentioned, is scalable to other building types. And we have a great team that's leading the effort.